Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, where we are broadcasting the news making headlines across Africa. My name is Aina Raisa Koyo, and alongside me is Glenora Shipura. And as usual, today we will be your champions.
Now, today is Panic Day. Panic Day is the one day of the year that it is okay to give into that emotion, or emotions rather, and that we all try to keep in check. It's okay to feel overwhelmed or upset. It does not mean you're weak or inept if you give into the feeling once in a while. Now let's take a look at this video on Panic Day.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories, Nigerians banned from joining the fight in Ukraine. Nigeria says it will not allow its nationals to join the fight in Ukraine, where Russian forces are bombing cities and rattling neighborhoods with gunfire for over a week now. This follows reports for alleged recruitment of volunteers in the country to fight for Ukraine. Nigeria's foreign ministry said the Ukrainian embassy had denied any role in any alleged exercise. However, the embassy confirmed that a number of Nigerians had approached it, indicating willingness to join the war. According to a statement on the 7th of March signed by Francisca Omuyuli, the spokesperson of the ministry.
Now, in our next story, Libya suspends the implementation of gender equality agreement. Now, the Libyan Transitional Council of Ministers, headed by Abdelhamid Biba, has suspended the implementation of an agreement with the United Nations on gender equality. Now, the decision was taken on the eve of International Women's Rights Day at a government meeting last Sunday. Now, according to the official statement, the suspension was taken as a precaution in view of the conflict of some of the articles with the provisions of Islamic Sharia. Now, however, Huria Tormal, the Minister of State for Women's Affairs, who has been widely criticized by the Islamists, made it clear last October when the agreement was signed that national law takes precedence in the event of a contradiction.
In our next story, gunmen kill at least 62 vigilantes in Nigeria's Kebbi state. Gunmen ambushed and killed at least 62 members of a volunteer vigilante group in Nigeria's northwestern Kebbi state, the head of the group and police spokesperson said, in the West, violence to hit the state since mid-January. Many northwestern states in Nigeria have groups of volunteers who help defend villages and towns from armed gangs, as security forces are stretched fighting Islamic militants and gangs known as bandits. Osman Sani, the head of Yasai Kai Vigilante Group in Kebbi, told Reuters that his group had planned to attack bandits in the Sakaba area on Sunday night, but someone tipped them off.
Now, in our next story, more South African corruption exposed in state capture report. Now, on February 28, Raymond Zondo, South Africa's acting Chief Justice, handed the third and penultimate part of a report from the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, HS, to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, it was another chapter of arguably the most anticipated report in the Rainbow Nation, an investigation into what has been described as its largest post-apartheid corruption scandal. Now, it came 2 months after the president had received the first part of the report from Zondo's commission. Now, the commission, which held its first hearing in August 2018, sat for close to 4 years after several extensions of an initial mandate of 180 days. Now, the report is effectively an inquiry into the affairs of Ramaphosa's embattled predecessor, Jacob Zuma, As well, boss to both Ramaphosa and Zondo, who was appointed in January 2018 to investigate corruption in government following recommendations in 2016 by the then public protector, Thuli Modensela.
Moving on to Sudan, protesters demand return to civilian rule in fresh demonstration. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of the Sudanese capital Khartoum on Monday as they denounced the military coup of last October. Security forces fired tear gas canisters towards them. Monday's rally was the latest in a string of protests over the military power grab, which removed the civilian-led transitional government. Since then, a political way out of the crisis has not been found. Negotiations under the aegis of the UN envoy have remained unsuccessful. The ruling generals vowed to hand power to an elected government, promising elections next year, but young protesters call for an immediate return to civilian rule. After the break, we bring you more of your international news. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now let's take a look at our second batch of news stories. Now, UN rights chief says airstrikes have killed hundreds since November in Ethiopia. Now, the UN human rights chief said on Monday the situation in northern Ethiopia had deteriorated since November, and her office had received reports of widespread violations, including rapes and lethal airstrikes. Now, Michelle Bachelet told the Geneva-based Human Rights Council her staff had recorded 304 deaths and injuries to 373 people in air attacks, apparently carried out by the Ethiopian Air Force in Tigray and Afar regions. Now, the government has regularly denied targeting civilians in the 16-month world war, pitting Ethiopia's federal forces against rebellious forces of the Tigray People's Liberation Front. Now, Ethiopia's envoy to the Human Rights Council, Mahalet Hailu Haude, dismissed Bachelet's statement on Monday, saying it was at variance with the facts on the ground. Now, in the same speech, Bachelet said her office had received reports of 306 rapes by Tigrayan forces in the Amhara region in November to December in 2021. Now, Reuters has interviewed women in the Amhara region who have described gang rapes by Tigrayan forces.
Moderna signs a MOU with Kenya for first mRNA facility in Africa. Pharmaceutical giant Moderna has signed a memorandum of understanding with Kenya's government for its first mRNA vaccine manufacturing facility in Africa. In a statement on Monday, the company said its goal is to produce up to 500 million doses of vaccine a year for the continent, with a focus on drug substance manufacturing, though the facility could be expanded to include fill and finish work. In parallel, Moderna is also working on plans to allow it to fill doses of its COVID-19 vaccine in Africa as early as 2023, subject to demand, the company said.
Now, in our next story, senior official from Tunisia's Ennahda party released from house arrest. Now, a senior official from the biggest party in Tunisia's suspended parliament was released from more than 2 months of detention early on Tuesday, his party said. Now, Noureddin Bahari, vice president of the moderate Islamist Ennahda party, which has accused President Kais Saied of mounting a coup by dissolving parliament and seizing executive powers, arrived at his house at dawn in an ambulance, video showed. Now, the 64-year-old mounted a hunger strike while in detention, his supporters said. Now, the video footage released by his party appeared to show Bahari had lost a lot of weight. Now, the Interior Minister said in January, Bahari had been held for illegal submission of passports and nationality documents and on suspicion of terrorism without going into details, and Hada dismissed the charges as politically motivated. Now, the Interior Ministry said it had lifted what it called Bahari's house arrest after the appointment of a new Supreme Judicial Council, which would allow the judiciary to complete the investigation into this case. Now, President Sahid on Monday appointed a temporary replacement for the country's top judicial council, a body he dissolved last month in what his opponents called a move to consolidate his power.
In Kenya, 3 people are dead due to the yellow fever outbreak. Kenya has declared an outbreak of yellow fever after 3 people died in Isiolo County, with 15 others recovering in the hospital. Revealed the first case was detected on the 12th of January 2022 and has since listed in Isiolo, Merti and Gabatula sub-counties. A statement by Director General of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, dated the 3rd of March. To date, 15 patients representing the fever, jaundice, muscle pain, and joint pain have been line listed, the youngest being 11, whereas the oldest is 65, while the majority of young adults, males, are most affected, the statement read. As a result, the Ministry of Health is planning to conduct a vaccination in all high-risk countries. Although there is no known specific antiviral for yellow fever, the disease is preventable through an effective vaccine, which Dr. Amoth said is safe and affordable.
Now, Bay Bridge border fence contractors ordered to pay back the millions. Now, contractors who were paid millions before doing any work on the Bay Bridge border fence have been ordered to pay back the profits they made from the controversial project. Now, the Special Investigating Unit took Mahwa Construction and Prof Team CC to court in a bid to recover money from the 40 million rand Bay Bridge border fence project. Now, in a judgment handed down on Tuesday, Special Tribunal Judge Lebohang Modiba said the biggest losers were the state and the public. Now, the SIU and the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure were ordered to appoint a qualified expert to compile a report as to the reasonableness of the 2 companies' expenses and to fill it with special tribunal. Now, furthermore, the special tribunal ordered the companies to pay back profits earned within 30 days of submitting the income and expenditure report. Now, in the event of a dispute in profits, the parties have been ordered to approach the special tribunal for an appropriate order on supplemented papers as necessitated by the circumstances.
Well, after the break, we will be discussing all things film and theatre. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, Namibian actress and celebrated director Senga Brockerhoff is a theatre veteran who has a lot of accolades under her belt. The film and theatre director talks to us about a new series of films lined up, as well as what has been happening in the film and theatre space. Let's have a look.
Welcome to the Africa Good Morning interview. Today we are joined by a creative Swiss knife, if you will. Senga Brockerhoff is a theatre and film director. We're leaving out a couple of things. Actress, singer, she does everything. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ashwin.
It's good to have you.
Excited to chat to you today.
Yes, and chat we shall indeed. Now, being a part of and parcel, obviously, of arts and theatre, what impact did COVID-19 have on the industry?
Sure, we'll talk all day when we start on that one. But I think everybody can agree that it was devastating throughout all disciplines, not just theatre, music, dance, all of that suffered a lot. But I think we're resilient, and I already sense that people are putting up and starting to work
You
again.
made 6 short films.
I did. I was lucky. Just before lockdown hit, we went into post-production with those 3. So that was lucky. And then, of course, we completed the next 3. But yeah, so generally things stood still, but everybody's starting to get moving again. And I think the public can look forward to a few exciting projects coming up.
Yes, and speaking of things to look forward to, let's talk about your latest projects.
Yeah, so just about over a week ago, we premiered the 3 short films that I produced for the Goethe Institute along with the Namibia Film Commission. So those 3 films were premiered last week. They will be screened again next week for the public, so that's exciting. And yes, and then I look forward to doing a bit of theatre. I'm going back to my first love again this year.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I don't think I left, actually. I was kind of just hiding away a little bit. But yes, I look forward to creating a bit of theatre this year.
Okay, now let's look at a broader perspective with regards to Africa and the industry. Of course, you're seeing things like Netflix, etc. Everybody's starting to take a peek and starting to see what we're about. But do you feel like there's room for growth, and how can creatives and industry supporters facilitate the growth?
Oh yeah, definitely. Lots of room for growth. But also, having said that, we've come a long way. And especially the past, I say 3 to 5 years, has been exciting. We've had a film, The White Line, up for Oscar considerations, Bago and the Giant. They went on Netflix, first Namibian film on Netflix. A lot of other films made it big on the International Film Festival circuit. So we're definitely out there, and I think just because of who we are as a people and our culture, all of that makes for a lot of interesting story potential. We've got a lot to say. We've got a lot of fascinating people that we can tell these stories about. But then, of course, we suffer the general sort of hurdles that the international markets as well have, and that's funding. So as soon as maybe the corporates come on board a little bit, we can create more. We
create more. And I'm glad you already touched on, there's stories to tell. The African narrative is possibly the most potent one right now because it's almost undiscovered. Everybody feels like we've been telling our stories, but we're actually just scratching the surface, as you're saying. But now, how do you feel we can make a valuable contribution to the world market? I feel like we are already, but in individuals, individuals, there's a couple of people we see out there, like Tusom Berushi just got awarded just last night, or the night before last night. But how can we, as Africans, as a collective of creatives, not that we necessarily have an association, but how do you feel like we can contribute to the world industry?
I think it needs to start from sort of an authenticity place where we shouldn't be fearful of these big stories being told out there, these fantastical stories and these superhero stories. We need to bring it back to say these are our stories, and there should be some sort of authenticity to that, to stay within us as Africans and tell those stories for the world markets. And that, I think, could sort of turn the world view towards us to say there are stories to be told, and they can be interesting and as exciting as the big blockbusters that we tend to see.
Absolutely. Okay, so just tell us again the titles of the 3 films that people can watch next week.
Next week, the public can look forward to The Weight of Tomorrow. That's the documentary. We've also got Open Cage, which Ashwin is in. So for the fans there, you can also catch Ashwin in that one. And then, of course, Grootman, Big Man. Those are the 3 films that they can look forward to.
And that's next week Tuesday?
That's next week Tuesday at the Goethe Institute. Please be sure to book. Phone ahead and make sure that you are on the list because it's going to be packed.
All right. Now, Senga, there's a lot of people who see the words theatre, director, actress, and all of this, and they're young, and all they can really relate to is the energy and the work you're doing. It's International Women's Day. Something for the young girl out there who's watching you and wants to be a theatre director.
Oh, it's so hard, but the thing is, the reason it's hard is because it's so rewarding. Nothing this good ever comes easy. So the whole thing is just to stick it out. If you come from a genuine place of love for the arts, for theatre, you'll push through. And there'll be a lot of naysayers along the way, but you've got to just stick it out and believe that you can. And the world is ready to see work from women. We want to hear women's voices. We want to see strong female characters. So now is the time to get out there.
Now is the time. That was Senga Brockhoff, who is a theater and film director. She does so many more things. She's saying now is the time, not just for Africa, but for Namibian film industry and for you, the viewer at home. This has been Africa Good Morning. Thank you for sticking through our interview.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, welcome to another exciting edition.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time now for us to cross over to the real Africa, where Mike Sichula has the stories on the ground. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Africa, good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing there?
We are fantastic. Now, we are just as excited as Zambians because 96 Zambian students have returned back home from Ukraine. Please tell us more.
Yes, thank you very much. The 96 Zambians arrived in the country last evening, slightly about 19:30, and they were received at the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, the army base, by government officials who included the ministry from people from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, and also their parents and guardians. So these 96 Zambians are part of 141 Zambians who were documented to be based in Ukraine. So out of the 141, 96 have returned to Zambia. 27 opted to remain in Ukraine because they have stayed there for many years. Then the rest are caught up in one of the cities of Ukraine, which is has been heavy and has heavily come under bombardment from the Russian invasion. So the government is yet to provide feedback on the state of those that are in this hostile city. Then these that have returned, they will not reunite with their families at least for the next 14 days because of quarantine issues, and they also want them to be cancelled by people who are experts, considering that they are coming from a war-torn country. So it's a great news for the families of the 96 and also the Zambian government that has enabled their safe evacuation back home.
All right. Now, in your next story, Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa, Mozambique, and Botswana, Lyubov Abrivotova, has appealed to the Zambian government to suspend diplomatic ties with Russia. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes. The Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa, Mozambique, and Botswana held a Zoom meeting on Monday this week where she called on the Zambian government to suspend diplomatic ties with Russia. I think the Ukrainian ambassador was basing this appeal considering that Zambia at the United Nations voted against Russia's invasion into Ukraine. So the Ukraine is probably hoping that Zambia may be a soft spot for that. But the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has not directly responded to the call that was made by Ukraine to suspend ties with Russia. However, in previous engagements, the Zambian government did state that they are going to be neutral in this matter, and that the vote that they gave to against the war in Ukraine by Russia does not mean that Zambia is completely dealing away with Russia at this particular moment. Zambia and Russia have had bilateral ties since 1965, and based on that, the Zambian government is truly pledging to continue diplomatic ties with Russia and any other country in the world.
All right, yesterday was Women International Day, and the celebration continues as Lolita Muzeya won the non-title super welterweight in Ghana. Please tell us more about this. Halala to her. Congratulations to Zambia.
Yeah, I know these are kind of stories that you write. And indeed, she emerged victorious in Ghana. And she's been one of those rising stars in terms of boxing, female boxing. She's under the stable of Oriental Quarries Boxing Promotion. And the promoter, Mr. Christopher Marunga, has said that this victory that she put up in Ghana is one of those that will be used in other future careers. So in her fight, she has quite a number. She started boxing, I think, in 2015, and she has a total of 16 fights, and has only lost once in 17 professional fights. So from 17 professional fights, she has only lost once, and she's coming up so well. And the boxing promoter is saying that she's now ready for the big stage to compete for the likes of Catherine Piri, the likes of Esther Piri, who have gone a little further to participate in women boxing. So hoping that she's going to be one of those big stars.
Very impressive profile. Now, I understand that all is set for All Stars versus the Rest showdown as Chipolo Polo's boat coach, Ajiso Asonovic, looks to select players for the national team. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so what has happened is that the Zambia national team has got a new coach, the Croatian Asanovic, and he has been given a task to qualify the national team to the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations to be hosted by Ivory Coast. So in terms of trying to select a new team, because he's a new coach, but however, despite him being at the top of the job, he was an assistant to Beston Championship. So now he wants to select his own team. So what the Football Association of Zambia has done is that they have organized what they are calling the All-Stars team versus the rest. So today, there's going to be a match between the All-Stars team against the rest in Kitwe at Nkana Stadium. Then it is through these matches that the coach is going to come up with his best team so that the team can compete for the place at the Africa Cup of Nations in 2023. And there will just be two matches. The first one on the Copper Belt, then another match will be played in Lusaka, which will act as a final selection point to have a solid team in terms of going forward if the team has to qualify to the Africa Cup of Nations.
All right, Master Sichula, if you can get me an autograph from Lolita, I'm telling you, you are going to make the rest of my days. Thank you very much for joining us on Africa. Good morning.
Thank you very much. I've taken that homework and I'll try by all means to execute it as you expect. Thank you very much. Africa, good morning.
All right, Master Mike Sichula, our Zambian correspondent, coming through with some amazing news. Right after the break, you're with us.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and thank you for staying with us. Now we were in Zambia. Now we head on over to Cape Town, South Africa, speaking to Ari Ohad. Good morning.
Yes, very good morning, Laura. Nice to talk to you this morning. Lovely day here in Cape Town.
Oh, awesome. Now, I understand in your first story, load shedding continued to challenge the South African economy from Tuesday as nationwide households and industry battled with power cuts. In the Western Cape, the railway system also grinded to a halt. Can you tell us more?
Yes, load shedding continued to be a challenge in South Africa. Unfortunately, that's the station in Cape Town. Lots of people waiting. There's thousands of people that commute every day. That's as it is. The main line is not operational. One of the big lines, the central line, is not operational for some years now. But about 30,000 plus people use that every day. So load shedding is something that South Africans got used to. But the challenge is that it happens just on 99, so to speak. So all of a sudden there's outages. There was power stations that tripped, 4 power stations that tripped across the country. Then there's the stage 2 load shedding. So effectively for us here in Cape Town, it means you have 2.5 hour set window in a day where you don't have any electricity. It could be in the morning, could be in the afternoon, but they give out the schedule. So it's bad for economy, obviously, and it's bad for the commuters. In this case, the metro rail system grinded to a halt yesterday in Cape Town. That was not good for the economy.
All right, Ari, we understand that Oscar Pretorius could possibly be paroled. Please tell us about this.
Yes, already 35 years old, and you won't believe how fast time goes. It already happened in 2013. Unfortunately, a very sad situation that happened on Valentine's Day 2013. River Steenkamp was shot through a bathroom door. He was sentenced to 13 years imprisonment, and the laws are if you've done half of that time, then you're up for parole. There were some changes at sometimes legal changes that was made to the time that his service or time in jail started. But the news now in short is that Oscar Pistorius' legal team is arguing in court that he was meant to be released on parole already last year in February 2021. So that is arguments before the court. There's also a victim offender, that's the system they call it, negotiations, or in the parole process, the victim and the offender speak to each other. And in this case, it is the parents of Riva Steenkamp that needs to engage with Oscar Pistorius, and that is part of the parole board process. So that is all happening at the moment.
Now, in your next story, the South African economy shows signs of recovery as the gross domestic product achieved a growth of 1.2% in the fourth quarter. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, indeed. It is South Africa that still reeled from, obviously, the unrest of 2021. That wasn't good at all for the economy. COVID-19 is going to affect worldwide. So in the fourth quarter, there was a growth of 1.2% on the GDP. That's at least in the right direction. That is SA economy, that is Statistics South Africa indicate that the annual growth at the moment could be 4.9%. Just to break it down a little bit, the sectors that the best growth is agriculture, forestry and fishing, up by 12.2%. And they had good rains, obviously, in the agriculture, so too in Namibia as well. But the rains also had a negative effect on the mining. When there's too much rain, it's less effective on iron ore mining and coal mining. So that the industry was down, unfortunately. But at least the GDP grew in the fourth quarter by 1.2%.
All right, the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe, has said offshore and gas exploration should continue despite legal setbacks. Tell us about this.
Shell is one of the main groups that's involved, plus the Minister of Minerals and Resources and Energy, Mr. Gwede Mantashe. There he is. He's very positive and he's very adamant that that process must continue. The challenge at the moment is there's a temporary interdict that was achieved by environmentalists and also community organization. The challenge is that the seismic surveys done that is the accusation by the communities and the environmentalists, is that seismic surveys is harmful for the ocean life. And more this must be done, etc. But obviously, we all understand that gas is the way to go, and gas findings off your coast is very valuable for the economy, as we saw on the southern tip of Namibia. So that is an ongoing situation, but at the moment there's interdict. There must be more feedback from Shell and to get okay from the community.
All right. Now, in your feel-good story, a South African teacher could escape the Russia invasion into Ukraine when he walked 15 hours to the Polish border, where he could be transported into the Netherlands. Can you tell us more?
It's always, it sounds almost like a movie that they can do about this. Ukraine is in the news, obviously, worldwide. That is Johan Nel. He was on his way to Mexico, actually, and for some reason he had to go through the Ukraine. And in the Ukraine, at the Mexican embassy, needed to get paperwork to go and be a teacher in Mexico. But he got stuck in the invasion. He was in Kiev. It was very difficult for him to get out of Kiev, and he just took it by road, and he walked 15 hours. He had a lift or two at some stage, but he got to the Poland border. There he was transported also further by train to the Netherlands. So he's on his way back to South Africa first. He's going to catch his breath again. At least he's safe in the Netherlands. And then apparently the people in Mexico is understanding. They'll give him some time, and he can still be a teacher in Mexico. So it's a good story to end. At least he survived to tell the story, and they had to walk 15 hours to get to the border. But that happened in Ukraine. So he's on his way back from the Netherlands to South Africa again.
All right, Ari, we wish you a wholesome Wednesday, and thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning.
Thanks, Aina, and thanks, Glenora. Have a brilliant day, both of you, and all the listeners and viewers, and we talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Now, the Sudanese bank is set to own exchange rate without central bank intervention. More of these stories coming up in economic news.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Now let's take a look at our economic news stories. Now, Sudanese banks set to own exchange rate without central bank intervention. Now, Sudanese bank and currency exchanges will set their own local currency exchange rate without central bank intervention. Now, the regulator said in a statement on Monday without disclosing when the decision would be implemented. Now, Sudanese authorities decided on Sunday to unify the exchange rate of the Sudanese pound, the acting Minister of Information said, weeks after the currency value began to slip again on the black market. Now, the move comes within the framework of integrated, sustainable and reforming monetary policies that will be issued gradually aimed at stabilizing the exchange rate and increasing the banking system's ability to attract resources, the central bank statement said.
In our next story, this is why South Africa's 2 biggest gold miners differ on wages. South Africa's 2 biggest gold miners, Sibanye Stillwater Ltd and Harmony Gold Ltd, operate many of their mines in the Witwatersrand Basin near Johannesburg. They pay the same tariff for electricity, which after labor is the standout expense at 20% of the cost at both companies. The wage bills diverge. They are on course to account for 53% of Harmony's cost and represent 49% of the outlay at Sibanye, where 2 unions have served a notice of strike action from the 9th of March. Negotiation is a block with Sibanye for unions, the Association for Mine Workers and Construction Union, the National Union of Mine Workers, Solidarity and United Association of South Africa have demanded a 1,000 rand increase per month each year for the next 3 years.
Now, in our next story, new agreement to raise Uganda's cargo volume inked in Dar. Now, port and rail service providers in Tanzania and Uganda have signed a freight forwarding agreement with roving groups of Uganda in a deliberate effort to raise the volume of cargo to and from the neighboring landlocked country that passes through the Dar es Salaam port. Now, the agreement signed yesterday involved the Tanzania Ports Authority, the Tanzania Railways Corporation, the Uganda Railways Corporation, and was facilitated under the Central Corridor Transport Facilitation Agency. Now, currently, it is only about 2% of Uganda's cargo that passes through the Dar es Salaam port, according to TRC Director General Masanja Kandokosa. Now, the Chief Operating Officer of the URL, Mr. Okachi Abubakar, said they were signing the agreement when 70 carriages were en route from Uganda and had set up 2 large ships on Lake Victoria to facilitate the transportation of the cargo. Now, Mr. Abubakar told the company, "We are cooperating with TRC in oil shipping, which has not existed for more than 15 years, and we know that oil is more delicate compared to the product you want to export." Now, a representative from Roofings Group, Martin Kauyune, said currently the company has a capacity of 2,500 tons per annum of steel and is expected to grow.
Pension arrears soared to 27.5 billion kwacha. Pension arrears continue to accumulate, seen at 27.5 billion kwacha as at December 31st, 2021, up from 22.9 billion kwacha in June. Figures from the Reserve Bank of Malawi show. This shows that within the next 6-month period under review, which coincided with the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the arrears grew by 4.6 billion kwacha. Experts have been attributing this scenario to the pandemic, which has affected business operations. The Pension Act of 2010 makes pension fund remittances mandatory, but our finding shows that over 1,227 employees continue to face challenges to remit pension funds. When we return back, we bring you the sports package with Ari Houghad. Stay with us. Upcoming next is your economic indicators.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Now, Ari Houghad is a jack of all trades. He brings us the news and he also brings us sports news. Let's have a look at the sports package brought to you by Ari Houghad.
Good day everyone, it's time for international sport and we start off with athletics news with 2 world records broken within a few days in the world of athletics. And we start off with pole vaulting and there it was Armand Duplantis. He is from Sweden, he's 22 years old and he broke his own world record. He bettered the height to 6 meters and 19 centimeters. That was at the World Indoor Tournament that was an event at Belgrade in Serbia. The 22-year-old Swede, Duplantis, is also the Olympic champion. And other Olympic news or other athletics news, another world record that was broken, that was South African, that is Stephen Mokoka, and he broke the world record in the 50-kilometer road race, and he bettered that with a few minutes. His winning time was 2 hours and 40 minutes and 13 seconds. That was at an event, a meeting, a Nedbank meeting in Caberta in the Eastern Cape in South Africa. Now we continue with some soccer news or football news, and FIFA announced that the match was postponed between Scotland and Ukraine, and that match was a World Cup qualifying game that was meant to be played in Scotland on the 24th of March. So that game has been postponed. The date is yet to be set. The winner of that game between Ukraine and Scotland, they must meet the winners of the game between Wales and Austria. That game was meant to be played on 29th of March, but that is also going to be postponed. The World Cup in Qatar, the Soccer World Cup in Qatar will start on the 21st of November and the final being played on the 18th of December. And we continue with some football news from the English Premier League, and the English Premier League continued in the week, and it was Tottenham Hotspur that played against Everton, and a big win for Tottenham Hotspur. They beat Everton by 5-0, and that is a big result for them in trying to reach the top 4 of the English Premier League. Of course, by reaching the top 4, you qualify for the Champions League. At the moment, then Tottenham Hotspur will be in 7th place, but it's a tight race. They've got played 26 games. They've got 45 points, and in 4th position at the moment is Arsenal. They also played 25 games, and they've got 48 points at the moment. And we continue with cricket news. It is the World Cup cricket for women. It's the 50 overs World Cup currently taking place in New Zealand. And a game that we can give the score of is Australia that played Pakistan. And that's the latest result. Australia beat Pakistan by 7 wickets. And what happened in the game was that Pakistan batted first. They made 190 for the loss of 6 wickets. And that is in their allotted 50 overs. That game is being played in Tauranga in New Zealand. So Australia batted down the runs quite easily in 34 overs. That was 193 for the loss of only 3 wickets. So Australia winning their second game. They earlier also in the tournament beat England by 12 runs. Pakistan's next game will be on Friday, and that is when they face South Africa in their next game of the World Cup. That's been played in New Zealand. And we conclude with some cycling news on international sport, and we go to the Paris Nice cycling tour that's happening at the moment. There's going to be 8 stages, and the result of the second stage is that it was a sprint to the end. It was quite a flat stage, and the winner of this the second stage was Fabio Jacobsen. He's from the Netherlands, and he won in the time of 3 hours 22 minutes and 54 seconds. Following him, just a few hundredths of a second in second place, was Wout van Aert. He is from Belgium. And then in third place is the overnight yellow leader, and that is Christophe Laporte of France. So the general classifications after stage 2 is that Christophe Laporte of France is still leading. His total time at the moment is 7 hours 11 minutes and 15 seconds, and just 500ths of a second in second place at the moment is Wout van Aert of Belgium, and then in third place is Primož Roglič, and he's about 11 seconds behind the leader at the moment. The third stage will be over 191 kilometers. So that's the international sports news for today. Hope you have a great day. We talk again tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.
Happy Wednesday, and thank you very much for watching our show. However, if you're just joining us now, here are your highlights. Nigerians banned from joining fight in Ukraine. Libya suspends the implementation of gender equality agreement. Gunmen kill at least 62 vigilantes in Nigeria's Kebbi state. More South African corruption exposed in state capture report. Sudanese bank set to own exchange rate without a central bank intervention. Sudan protesters demand return to civilian rule in fresh demonstration. Those have been our stories.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Now, do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1UP2 website and on our DSTV channel 285 between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Now, if you have any comments regarding our show, please do share them on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And if you happen to have videos or photos of happenings in your parts of Africa, to share them with us, and we'll gladly include them in a segment in our program. I am Glenora Shipura, and this is Aina Raiza Kweyo.
It is all our love, all our light.